everybody. Welcome to Andrew Broussard Watercolors. Today, we're going to start a different series of videos, and I figured we'd do a big overview discussing what it's going to be in regards to. Previously, before I got into watercolors, I was doing the Chinese brush painting. I don't think there was anything in particular that led me to it. Maybe it was the ease of some of the fish drawings or birds, things like that. It was very kind of relaxing, meditative, I guess. And, there's a lot of cool aspects to it. So I did this for about a year, about 2 years ago, let's say, is when I stopped doing it. So I figure we could bring a series in discussing this stuff and try to bring some of the elements from Chinese painting into our Western watercolor fast and loose paintings. So what I have in front of me is a whole bunch of different brushes that I want to talk about and how we can utilize them. And it'll be a relearning process with this taking place. I'm going to take just a lamp black. We'll use that as one of our pigments. In the Chinese brush painting, they use the India Chinese ink with the Sumier ink, something like this. $10, give or take, online or at Hobby Lobby. There's a lot of other brands and whatnot, but I figured I'd use watercolor so we could kind of transition into just using it with watercolor, trying to avoid inks, even though I will talk about inks with this. Also, vermilion within the Chinese brush painting, especially the fish, the koi, it's very similar, common to have that vermilion type color. So this lid does not want to open on me. We got that. We'll pour that out. We'll see if we wind up using any of it. We're just looking at the color that we get. Now we'll look at some brushes. There's two main types of brushes within the Chinese brush painting. You can find these online on Amazon, on eBay, in Hobby Lobby. I think Blick has them. They're all over the place. There's a stiffer brush, which they might refer to as like a bamboo brush, or I think some places had referred to it maybe, I don't know if it was chrysanthemum brush or something like that. But it's just essentially the darker hair, stiffer brush. Then they had one that I believe this individual brush may have been called the White Cloud. There may be a bigger brush in that model. And it's the softer hair. It doesn't spring back as easily. And it's good for laying in washes. Here's a smaller version of this. I wouldn't be surprised if you walked in the Hobby Lobby and you see a 3-pack of something like that. So far, stiffer, looser. And this is a combination of the two. They call it a combination brush. Where on the inside, you can see those darker hairs. So we have that there. And on the outside, we have the light hairs. So it's kind of a mixture of those to kind of give more of a loose, non-spring back action, as well as having that spring back action on the inside. And the last kind of real brush is something that I think most of us watercolorists will have, is a squirrel mop brush. And in fact, I may lean towards utilizing this more within these experiments and these videos. Mainly because, like I said, I think it's more readily available on your desk as opposed to going out and buying a new one. This one was the Rubens number 6 off of Amazon. I think it was $20. Also, kind of honorable mention, we have one of those water fillers, which I think you could fill with watercolor, or you could fill with an ink, or at least dip it. And it has kind of a line variation, which will help with those shapes and those calligraphy strokes. I might just dip it in some paint later on just to kind of show what's potential. Then I also took out the Micron pen if you wanted to kind of dot or add little accents. I don't think it's traditional in any way, shape, or form. but it might help. I mean, you're just kind of assimilating, you're taking in another culture's approach to art and seeing how you can add it into your repertoire. Then I have a Noodler's, this is the Conrad brush pen, where I sit it into a bottle of ink and can twist it if it wants to twist. Of course it's not going to. And it sucks up ink into it, and it has that brush effect. This one's a little dirty. You can see there's some ink there still. You can utilize that with some light fast inks. I'll talk about inks in a moment. Then I also have the Pentel Pocket Brush, where it comes with a cartridge with ink. The original ink I don't think is light fast. I'm not sure if it's light fast or waterproof. So I take a syringe or a blunt nose syringe, pull out the ink, and replace it with waterproof ink in there. And you can use that to practice as well. I think this guy has ink in it, so we'll get to it in a bit. Just another one of those. Here's some ideas for ink. This is a fountain pen ink, Noodler's Heart of Darkness. It is light fast and waterproof. It's the type of ink that you'd want to use in these guys. You wouldn't want to use a Chinese ink or India ink, because those would dry and harden and mess up the pen. Also have the carbon ink, which is the platinum ink. That's a fountain pen ink, but they say it's more prone to clogging fountain pens that aren't made exclusively for it. I have this in a big Noodler's pen, and I also have it in desk pens, I think, and I've never really had any issues with it. Also, this guy comes with a free pen if you were to order this. This is between $15 to $21, let's say. And this guy, I think I've seen it for $16 on Amazon. And Pen Chalet has it on there for cheap too. Okay, so those are kind of the inks that we're going to look at, and if we utilize that. I also have a Boston Safety pen, which is made by Noodler's. With this, you fill it up with ink, then you twist, and you turn it up, and your nib comes out. And due to that, it prevents kind of drying and spilling as much. And this pen was designed to be able to use India ink or gouache, something with gum arabic in it, as well as I think some acrylic inks. However, I haven't put any of those type of inks in it yet. It literally just has this guy in it, because from what I was reading, you may have to do a more extensive cleaning with this pen if you use something like India ink in it. But it can handle India ink, unlike other fountain pens, where you're going to completely destroy other fountain pens. So that's kind of a collection of tools. Let's look at the marks that each one make. This right here is the bamboo brush. And I'm using the back of a watercolor painting. It was kind of an unsuccessful experiment with inks. Let's grab a paper towel and we'll get started. So this paper is Stonehenge Aqua, and usually within the Chinese painting they have the rice paper. It's not really made from rice, it's just a different type of paper, almost translucent, and it accepts paint and ink in a really weird way, in a really beautiful way. So anyway, see what type of strokes we could get, and that line variation is going to potentially help us out and give us dry brush effects. It's going to give us variation in tone throughout the mark, and it's just really fun. Right now, like I said, we're just using a black watercolor, and you can actually, I'm using a small little dish here, But you can dilute it, and then you can get more of a concentration on the end and try to get variation there within it. And you see how we can go from a wide line to a thin line. So there's a lot of spring back to it. And this could easily be read as one stroke for the back of a fish. So that is the bamboo brush. You can also look at it as one stroke for a feather. You could go back in and feed in if you wanted to access stuff, if you wanted to darken these lines. It's a really good brush. All right, so let's put that guy down. We'll play with this guy. I believe this is goat hair. They do make synthetic mop brushes, but I don't think they hold water quite as well. So this one, if I remember correctly, doesn't spring back as easily and does more of a wash. No, we get a spring back with it. Yeah, so we can utilize this as well. Let's see if we can do a big old fish tail, kind of like the goldfish. I'll let that sit. So that's the goat-haired brush. This one is just a smaller version of this guy. Whenever they paint, I think it's peonies, like the flower, not like the dog. Peony. I believe you can use these brushes. You know, they're really good for flowers as well. You know, it's just that whole one mark concept. This is the combination brush. It could be used as a mop or as a fine line. You can even add little accent fins. I'm going to wash these off good. This is the squirrel mop, which we'll see how it holds up compared to the other ones, and if it works well, we'll probably keep this one as the one we'll use for other videos and demonstrations. Yeah. We can feed in variation there. I feel like this one springs back very easily, so there's a little bit of difference. Oh, the water brush. Line variation. They sell these with different lengths of the tips and the line variation. So if you were to just get something like this, or if you have something like this, you can get it in a large or a wide brush. But as you can see, compared to the other brushes, we don't get nearly as much. If we do maybe a flower, a leaf, sorry, come on both sides. You do something like that. So that's the water brush. I just, I don't want to be negative. I'm just not, I've had issues with cleaning them. So, but they're supposed to be really good for traveling. Let's fill up this brush pen with some carbon ink. All right, just sit it in, suck up some ink in there. So this is platinum carbon ink in a Noodler's brush pen. Noodler's actually does make this is the Conrad model, which is a smaller one. And then they have one that's has a lot of hair on the end. I mean, it's synthetic, but they have one that has a lot more to it. So that's the platinum carbon ink. And you can see the line variation is similar to the water brush, but I would say this pen looks more classy, and the carbon ink is darker here. Though you're not going to get the tonal variation within the brush stroke from this guy. Platinum pocket pen. It must be filled with the Noodler's Heart of Darkness. I'm pretty sure that's what I filled it up with. And ultimately, these guys are good for when you're out and about to practice those strokes. So that's the Platinum pocket pen, which, like I said, will come with cartridges. And you could buy a lot of cartridges for cheap. I pulled the ink out and I put a light fast ink in it. So, just looking at the micron, let's say we had like a little fisheye or something like here. If we needed to make little accent marks, a micron works well with watercolor. If you could decide to go the fountain pen route, so that's an ink, and this is an ink, the Heart of Darkness. If you wanted to add little concepts to these guys, you can do that. And I believe I mentioned that you could fill it up with gouache or India ink, but that's the only type of pen you can do that with. There's one other, I think it's the Indiagraph. I've never owned one. I think it's about $80 or more. I just can't afford it. But if you do wind up using a pen like this and putting ink in it, make sure you keep it clean and don't put it in your other fountain pen inks. So let's look at our vermilion ink. So vermilion ink seems, vermilion paint, watercolor. It's a common color within the Chinese brush painting, especially in the koi fish, or if you do a goldfish and you want to do the top of his head in one color, and then you wanted to switch to the body in black, you can go back and forth between those two if you wanted to start looking at simple brush painting. And he's just making marks. And last but not least, let's see if we have it right here. And we do not. It should be, let's see. I must have it just somewhere in another collection of art stuff. So, like I said, there is a wider Noodler's pen out there on the market that would have a wider brush stroke to it. But that's kind of just an introduction to our different materials that we can utilize in the following videos, when we're just going to do some very simple fish, birds, and whatnot. So I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if there's anything you want to see in regards to this, if you have any questions or comments. And I'll be back with a very short videos in regards to just the mark making for the different fish and shapes. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you soon.